Naruto, killing system turns Hidan into legend. Episode 121. Although Danzo made up his mind and once again gave up a chakra eye as a price to launch Izanagi. However, his heart was suddenly shocked. Because Izanagi did not start, the injury on his left hand did not recover, and the chakra eye on his right arm was not closed. This is... What's going on? How so? Tuanzong roared a little crazy, and his eyes were a little confused. Will Izanagi fail? This is simply a fantasy, okay. The forbidden technique, which has always been used as a whole card by Tuanzong, gave Tuanzong a heavy blow at a critical moment. This can't be hidden and not crazy. What is it like for the existence you have always lived on, but suddenly betrayed you? And Tuanzo is now in such a state. Oh? After launching the Blood of the Death Division, Danzo was actually unable to launch Izanagi to influence. Fei Duan's eyes lit up, and when Danzo launched Izanagi, he thought that he was likely to face defeat. After all, Danzo used Izanagi to wipe out all the blood that had flowed before. Then the conditions for the launch of the flying stage Death Division with blood are already gone. However, it is worthy of being a forbidden technique that has been upgraded by the system, and this level of terror is simply desperate, and even a forbidden technique like Izanagi cannot break through the curse that has been launched and change his life. Tuanzong, it seems that your time of death is coming. Is there anything else to say? Fei Duan looked at Tuanzong in front of him, this guy who has fought for the position of Hokage all his life, but he is destined for such an end. I have to say that this is also a sadness. Danzo's somewhat dull face gradually came back to his senses because of Izanagi's failure, and at this time, there was no longer the slightest desire for life in his eyes. His eyes were full of death intent. Since ordinary means were useless against the flying segment, then he could only use the last move. Tuanzang's saws instantly exerted force, rushing towards the flying section at his fastest speed. The range of that technique was limited, and he wanted to ensure that he had enough distance before he died. Fei Duan's eyes showed a hint of mockery. How could he not know the whole card of Tuanzong? But he was not in a hurry, and at the same time that Tuanzong rushed, the black spear appeared in his hand. Enjoy the pain, Danzo. Poof. The scale armor formed by the muscles revealed a slight gap, and Fei Duan held a black spear and stabbed down the gap. It is the beautiful sound of the heart being completely penetrated, representing the sound of death coming. Tuanzong jumped high and pounced on Fei Duan's body, and in the air, he suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood, and then the breath of life quickly declined. But in the last moments of his life, there was a hint of a triumphant smile, and this distance was very close. At this time, the dying Tuanzong was only a few meters away from the flying section, and the last remaining strength made him fall in front of the flying section. I won. Before dying, Tuanzo said the last 3 words. As long as he can take Fei Duan away from this world together, then his death can be considered worth it. Sure enough, the prediction of the flying segment was not wrong, and after the Death Division upgraded to the second stage with blood, even Izanagi could not prevent the effect of this so-called one-hit kill. Master Fei Duan. Be careful. That's the 4-elephant seal. Uchiha Fugaku shouted loudly not far behind Fei Duan. The 4-elephant seal can also be regarded as an extremely terrifying kind of sealing technique. Once sealed, it is difficult for outsiders to unravel. Fei Duan naturally saw the rune of the 4-elephant seal that suddenly appeared from Tuanzang's chest, but he didn't panic in the slightest. With divine power, he is really not afraid of such a sealing technique. Kamui. The kaleidoscope of the left eye spun rapidly, and a spatial vortex instantly appeared at Tuanzang's corpse, sucking it into a deserted island in the space of the Sea of Blood. Then, the 4-elephant seals of Tuanzang erupted, swallowing up a small island, and then disappeared into the space forever. Fei Duan's eyes reflected the scene of the group hiding in the space of the Sea of Blood turning into a huge black ball, and then suddenly shrinking and disappearing. Taking out a small bottle and dripping the blood stained on the barbs of the mackerel muscles into it, Fei Duan's face showed a smile. The 4-elephant seal is not a ninjutsu that seals souls. Fei Duan can still use filthy soil rebirth to resurrect it. And Tuanzong also has 8 chakra eyes hidden in his hand, plus a total of 9 in the eyes. Izanagi's effect is not only for one's own forbidden technique, but can be used on other people. Just like asthma before asthma, Izanagi can change the original result in less than 60 seconds. Now, it's my second little maid's turn, but it seems that this maid is a little disobedient. Fei Duan set his sights on the water shadow illuminating the beauty. The curvaceous body was constantly dodging attacks from the 3 pillars at this time, and 3 huge Susanoo were blocking it and Chojuro in the middle. In the face of this terrifying Susanoo, Chojuro has almost no way, and even if his ninja knife flounder is liberated, its power is still far from Susanoo. Terumi, on the other hand, was limited by Chojuro and did not dare to use the boiling mist technique, which could not dissolve Susanoo, which also caused her to be passively beaten. If she could be as ruthless as Tuanzong, maybe now, Sansuchin would be more embarrassed. After all, it was the first time that Sanjikan had tried to use Susanoo to fight. Zhao Mei, are you sure you want to resist to the end? If you make a wrong choice, you should pay the price for it. Fei Duan ordered Sansuchin to stop, walked in front of Zhao Mei, looked at the embarrassed two, and said lightly. It doesn't matter to Shangjiro Fei Duan, it doesn't matter if you kill or not, but according to this enchanting and charming woman, he must get it. We surrender. We are willing to pay the corresponding price, and we can even let the Wuyin village and the funeral ninja village form an alliance and advance and retreat together. Zhao Meiyu looked pitiful, and said to Fei Duan delicately. Huh. Fei Duan laughed lightly, how could there be such a good thing? Before I saw your strength, I wanted to come and get a piece of the pie, now after being defeated by your own strength, you still have to reach an alliance with you, is there such a good thing under the sky? Episode 122, Zhao Mei, are you really getting younger and younger, and now you are starting to become naive? Fei Duan mocked unceremoniously, since he wanted to take her into slavery, he had to break her pride first. And Wuyin village is what she sees as a whole card, which has always supported her existence, but this is really nothing for Fei Duan. No matter how powerful the mist-hidden village is, can it compare to Konoha? Each of Konoha's unique families has its own unique abilities, such as the terrifying insect control technique of the Oil Lady clan, the heart-turning technique of the Yamanaka clan, and powerful spiritual power. Even when the Great Snake Pill Cholera Konoha, only Kakashi, Kai, and the people of the Dark Department participated in the rebellion in the entire Konoha, and where did those remaining people go? With the strength of those families, even if it is only the Hyuga clan who stands up, I am afraid that the 3 generations of Hokage will not die. And in Wuyin village, there are only 2 of the now famous ninja knife 7, one is Shangjiro, and the other is the dry persimmon ghost mackerel, and the dry persimmon ghost mackerel is still a rebel. What's more, since the death of the 4th generation of Water Shadow Citrus Ukura, the only human pillar power in Wuyin village has disappeared into invisibility, because even the 3 tails have already hidden, and it is impossible for Wuyin village to have the next human pillar power. Now in the Wuyin village, do you still have chips to negotiate terms with me, Zhao Meiyu? Fei Duan asked mockingly, he was about to become his own prisoner, and he tried to reach an alliance with him, which was a joke. Terumi's face was a little embarrassed, and at the same time, she felt a little powerless. With so many strong people as subordinates in the current Fei Duan, let alone Wuyin village, even if all the living forces of the 2 villages are combined, they may not be able to fight. After all, the 4 villages except Konoha do not have the protagonist aura of those newborn generations of Konoha, and all of them are Xiaoqiang who cannot be killed. It's like the flying section in the plot, who was calculated to die by Shikamaru, which is simply powerless to complain. Say, what exactly do you have? Zhao Mei said helplessly, her charming and enchanting face was full of bitterness, and now the Wuyin village is no longer much stronger than the Sand Ninja village. Even the people of Sand Ninja village are still alive until now, and they can be regarded as a seedling with great potential. However, Wuyin village can't even see the shadows of some excellent new generations. Coupled with his own wrong choice this time, the elites brought by Wuyin village this time were all slaughtered by these immortals who were reborn in filthy soil. Terumi now had to bow to Hida in order to protect himself and Chojuro. Because they can't die, once they die, then Wuyin village is really leaderless, and it is even very likely that a coup will break out. Conditions? Fei Duan's eyes looked at Zhao Mei's graceful figure unscrupulously, and there was an evil smile on the corner of his mouth. Shameless. Zhao Mei's face was slightly red, and she secretly cursed shamelessly. Fei Duan's eyes were too aggressive, making her feel like a little white sheep who had been stripped of her fur, and she could only be slaughtered by him. Lord Mizukage, Nagajiro is willing to sacrifice his life to cover Mizukage-sama from fleeing. I hope that Mizukage-sama will not sign any terms with this evil guy. Before Terumi could speak, Nagajiro on the side jumped out first. The young man naturally did not understand the twists and turns of the flying segment, but he knew that once Zhao Mei agreed to the conditions of the flying segment, it would definitely be a great disadvantage to the Wuyin village. Terumi rolled her eyes, this is a special use for you to give your life. The towering Uchiha fire flame array has sealed the burial ninja village, what else can you do except fly out? The problem is that she is not a earth shadow, and she can't fly. Lord Mizukage, please use boiling, Chojuro's life is not important, what matters is mist hidden village. Chojuro shouted excitedly, knowing that Terumi was unable to use the mist technique in this closed environment because of the restrictions of his companions, because he was worried that he would accidentally hurt his own people. Fei Duan also had to admit that in fact, the strength of this generation of Water Shadow Zhao Mei was quite strong. After all, he had 2 blood succession limits. The lethality of melting terror, and the corrosive power of boiling terror can even be corroded by Susanoo, which can already be said to be an extremely powerful ability. It's a pity that in addition to the range that she can control, even she can't control the range of the magic mist technique. After all, it is a mist-like existence, which will blow with the wind. Of course, she was also able to absorb all the mist of the magic mist technique, but in that case, wouldn't it mean that it didn't have any effect? Have you thought about it, my water shadow-sama? Are you ready to fight to the death, or are you ready to accept my next offer? Fei Duan looked at Terumi, who had a tangled face, and began to continue to put pressure on her. Lord Mizukage. Chojuro shouted excitedly again, hoping to wake up Mizukage-sama. He had always thought that it was because of his drag that Mizukage-sama would be trapped, so now he tried his best to persuade Terumi to release her strongest ninjutsu. Terumi sighed silently and glanced at Nagajiro with idiot-looking eyes. I thought that this was a teenager with great potential, and he might be able to grow into the next generation of water shadow in the future, but now it seems that he is still too young. I haven't even seen the form yet. Zhao Mei looked at the scale armor on Fei Duan's body. How could he not know what kind of nail stomach it belonged to? Big knife muscle. With the flying stage of the mackerel muscle, will you be afraid of your own clever fog technique? I'm afraid it's not that I have too many chakras first, and I want to send one out. Chojuro, who thought she was a drag, didn't even see through this, and thought that Terumi could escape, which really disappointed her. Alas. I promised, however, I hope you can let the misty hidden village go. Terumi sighed helplessly. People had to bow their heads under the eaves. Ha ha ha. Well, then you're my second little personal maid. Fei Duan laughed heartily. As long as Zhao Mei agreed, then he would be satisfied. As for whether Zhao Mei is sincere, Fei Duan doesn't care, because his strength is in front of Zaomayu, and he can't tolerate any resistance from her. Episode 123. Zhao Mei listened to the shameless conditions of Fei Duan, and although she had agreed, she still felt her face hot for a while. When will she become someone else's maid? Isn't that a request just too much? But for the sake of wooing village, as a qualified water shadow, she was already ready. Bastard! How dare you make such a request and give me death? The always shy teenager Nagajiro was angry, and the Mizukage-sama who was high in his heart would now actually agree to become a maid of the flying segment, which made him unable to accept such an ending no matter what. Just as the faith in the heart collapsed in an instant, Mizukage is Chojuro's faith, and her obedience means the collapse of Chojuro's faith. Flounder liberation. Chojuro could no longer suppress the anger in his heart, freed the double-bladed flounder, and a beam of light shot towards the flying segment. Humph. Uchiha Xiaoming, one of the three pillars, snorted coldly, and Susanoo appeared instantly, and the huge skeleton giant palm instantly grabbed the light blade and twisted it to smithereens. Nagajiro. He is my master. Do you still recognize me as a water shadow? Terumi angrily scolded Nagajiro and said that it was hard to save Nagajiro's life, but this guy went to find death himself. I don't know the reason why leaving Aoyama is not afraid of no firewood. Lord Mizukage. Chojuro shouted stubbornly. How could he tolerate Mizukage becoming the maid of this shameless man? Enough. My patience is limited. Chojuro can go, and you, stay. I need to leave a seal on you before you can leave. Fei Duan didn't want to simply accept a maid, what he wanted was the entire wooing village. As long as Terumi is in his hands, he can eat away at the misty hidden village little by little, making it completely a force in his hands. Therefore, Terumi must be firmly controlled in the hands. The way of control is also very simple. Fei Duan intends to directly set a 4-elephant seal on Zhao Meiyu's body. As long as she goes against her will, then her Fei Duan can completely seal her strength through the seal. And once sealed, Zhao Meiyu is just a weak woman who can be slaughtered by Fei Duan. Terumi, come with me. As for Chojuro, hurry up and get out before I change my mind, otherwise, I don't mind having one more subordinate. Fei Duan Senhen's voice sounded, and those scarlet eyes looked directly at Shangjiro. Although he is a little brat, he is also one of the 7 people of the ninja Dao. If he is really disobedient, then Fei Duan can only collect it. Me. Chojuro, don't let me do it myself. Terumi roared loudly, trying his best to get the two of them a chance to survive. If Chojuro was still not interesting, then Terumi was really going to be angry. Fugaku, let them withdraw the Uchiha fire flame formation and let Chojuro leave. Hida turned to Uchiha Fugaku and said, anyway, what should have been removed has been removed, leaving me Era, Chojuro, and Yamanaka Shunshin, who survived in the past of vertigo. Water shadow. My lord, Chojuro shouted unwillingly, and then, gritting his teeth and running out ruthlessly, he must bring the news back to the Mist-Hidden Village and let the people of the Mist-Hidden Village gather their strength to free the water shadow. I love Luo, you can go. After Chojuro fled, Hida turned his gaze to Iero, who had been in a state of sluggishness. Since the last time he ran away, Shoha appeared and was beaten by Fei Duan, and he was also pulled away from the general chakra thing. Although I love Luo and run away, it does not mean that he has lost consciousness and has no memory. In fact, he saw clearly in Shoha's body at that time, and the terrifying strength of Fei Duan made his heart tremble. I thought I was a terrifying monster, but in fact, the flying segment is even more terrifying than the monster. This led to the fact that after Chio brought my arrow here, my arrow didn't have any effect at all, and the whole time was on the edge. Hearing Fei Duan's words, Iai Luo walked out step by step, like a walking corpse. It seems that I have left too much impression on this little guy. Fei Duan touched the bridge of his nose. It seems that AI Luo already has a psychological shadow, and I don't know if I can grow into the mature wind shadow in the original work. Fei Duan turned his gaze again and looked at the guy of the mountain clan lying on the ground. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. This was the second member of the mountain clan to die at the hands of Fei Duan after the wind. It seems that the mountain clan and Fei Duan are in conflict. Deal with him, and then bring 3 people from Oto Ninja Village over. Our living strength can increase a few more. Fei Duan looked at Chio, who died in battle, and the oil girl took roots. These 2 people are good combat effectiveness, plus Tuanzong. Fei Duan's subordinates can be regarded as adding a not weak force. Yes, Master Fei Duan. After Uchiha Fugaku heard the order, he went down, mobilized the members of Uchiha and began to clean up the battlefield, and by the way, he went to bring the sacrifice of the rebirth of the soil. As for you, just come with me. Fei Duan said to Terumi, who walked to his side, and then took him into a desert island in the space of the Blood Sea. He didn't want Xiao Mei to contact Xiao Nan and Sunset Hong now. With her current strength, it might be a little difficult to deal with Xiao Nan, but dealing with Sunset Hong was really handy. Terumi's face became more and more rosy. What did he want to do when he brought me here? Do you plan to eat yourself directly in this wilderness? The more she wanted to be afraid, although she was quite mature, she had never been exposed to these things since she was a child, and she was really a little afraid in her heart. Okay, take off your clothes. After entering the Blood Sea space, the control of the flying red fruit said. Huh? Zhao Meiyu exclaimed. She didn't expect the flying section to go straight to the topic so much. Aren't you going to cultivate feelings? Even a maid can't be so fast. What do you think? I don't plan to eat you now, I just plan to plant the 4-elephant seal for you. Otherwise, after letting you go, what if you betray me? Fei Duan said a little speechlessly, but his words did seem to be very ambiguous. Episode 124. Ah. So. Zhao Mei was taken aback, but found that it was a false alarm, and her face was red with shame, and she actually thought badly. Although it was said that it was planted with a seal, it still made Terumi a little difficult to accept. After all, she is wearing an integrated Cheongsam thing. Fei Duan also looked at Zhao Mei with a stunned face. This royal sister who is more mature than Sunset Hong, her graceful posture and mature dress all make Fei Duan's eyes a little hot. In fact, planting a seal does not necessarily have to touch the body, but. Half an hour later, Zhao Meiyu stood up with a crimson face, and Fei Duan said that he planted the seal, but he also planted it. It's just that in this process, Terumi was eaten countless tofu by Fei Duan, and even Fei Duan used moon reading in order to strengthen Zhao Mei's impression of himself, so that Terumi how experienced a similar situation to Sunset Red. Go back to Wuyin village. When I am free, I will go to see you. Hopefully, when the time comes, you can give me a surprise. Fei Duan looked at the sweaty Zhao Mei and said, it seems that the moon reading still caused a lot of stimulation to it. Saying that, Fei Duan activated his divine power and took the 2 out of the Blood Sea space. Uchiha Makoto, you are responsible for escorting Terumi back to the Mist-Hidden Village, and if you encounter any danger, you can channel the other members of the Shinobi Village at any time. Fei Duan ordered. As his maid, he still had to be treated, and of course Fei Duan was responsible for safety. According to Fei Duan's thinking, as a maid for yourself, you only need to be responsible for looking beautiful as a flower, fighting, or something. That's what men should do. The reason why Makoto Uchiha was allowed to escort was because the men and horses brought by Terumi had been slaughtered by Hijuan's men, and Nagajuro had left early. Fei Duan only suspected that the 2-day scale Inoki of Iwahide village might compare with Mei's black hand, so he decided so. You know, this old guy in Yenin village is not a good stubble. As a long-lived existence, these things of conspiracy power are in his hands, which can be described as twisted. The people of Yenin village didn't have to worry. After all, they were relatively straightforward, and even came to participate in the viewing ceremony of the funeral ninja village with confidence. Only 2 people came. Before leaving, Zhao Mei turned around and glanced at Fei Duan with a complicated face, and then the graceful figure slowly disappeared into Fei Duan's eyes. It's been more than a day. Why hasn't the people brought by Tuanzang come back to report the message? Koharu said to Mito Menyen, who was on the opposite side, with a strong worried look on his face. Alas. I think something has already happened, otherwise with the dripping character of Tuanzang, it would not have been possible to delay for so long. Mito Manita sighed, the wrinkles on his face squeezed together due to the embarrassment of his complexion, and the thick stubborn aura could not be dissipated between his eyebrows. Koharu also nodded helplessly, agreeing with Mito Menyen's statement. It seems that you can only prepare to decide on the next Hokage, and Konoha cannot do without the leadership of Hokage. Mito Manita made up his mind, and Koharu nodded in agreement, and the 2 began to work on the selection of the next Hokage. The 2 of them did not say a word about the matter of the flying section, and they knew it tacitly. Now, it has become a flying section of the climate, and it is obviously impossible to provoke it easily, otherwise the return of the group is the best example. Even, they put the next Hokage's candidate on Tsunade again, because, after all, Hida was recommended by Tsunade. Maybe Hida looked at Tsunade's face, maybe he wouldn't be interested in Konoha anymore. Mist Hidden Village. As Nagajuro took the lead and returned to the village, various inconsistent voices erupted throughout the village. Some were afraid of the terrifying power of the flying section, and even proposed to send messengers to reconcile. Some of them are just as worried about Mizuki's safety as Nagajuro and want to send someone to rescue them. Others don't make a sound because, in their hearts, after receiving the news that Water Shadow was controlled by the flying segment, other thoughts had already arisen. The Ghost Lantern family is one of the best. They have long been extremely eager for the position of Water Shadow, but since the second generation of Water Shadow, they have not appeared in that position. As the most powerful tribe in Wuin Village, they naturally would not be willing to succumb to others, and this time, the opportunity came. As for the threat of the Burial Ninja Village to the Mist Hidden Village, they can think so much badly, and it is the Water Shadow Zhao Mei who offends the flying section, and it is not them. At that time, they can naturally push it all, or pay some price to bring in exchange for the settlement of the flying segment. Compared with the position of Water Shadow, the so-called price is not worth mentioning at all. What they lost, after they get the position of Water Shadow, they can naturally recover more. Unlike Konoha's calmness, because of Chojuro's news, the entire village of Kirihide fell into chaos. I don't know what kind of face Terumi will look like after returning to Mist Hidden Village. Sand Shinobi Village. With the return of my arrow, Sand Shinobi Village was completely silent this time. The passage of elite ninjas and the death of Chiyo's mother-in-law in battle have brought them great pressure. Chiyo's mother-in-law's own brother Kai Laozong finally stood up and presided over the overall situation for Sand Shinobu Village. He didn't mean anything to avenge his sister, of course. Nor does it have that ability. Kai Laozong took over all the affairs of Sand Shinobi Village in an all-round way, and once again stepped forward from retreating to the background. However, this time, he did take over the Sand Ninja Village by assisting Miero. After all, he is already old, and Iai Luo is their only hope for the Sand Ninja Village now. Iwahide Village. With the return of the two-day scale Inoki, the entire ninja village revealed a busy atmosphere, and every ninja was actively preparing something, and it seemed that they would have some big moves next. Yunin Village. The village was as calm as ever, and after Lei Nai returned with Karabi, there was still no movement in the village. It seems that isolated from the outside world. Episode 125. In this world, a ninja village that suddenly appeared, a ninja village called Burial, suddenly appeared in everyone's field of vision. And another amazing news spread all over the place. Konoha, Sand Ninja Village and Mist Hidden Village among the 5 great ninja villages were all hit hard at this funeral ninja village viewing meeting. Even, the Sand Ninja Village of the 5 great ninja villages has been closed for this reason, and outsiders speculate that the current vitality of the Sand Ninja Village must have been low to the extreme, which will lead to such a result. Compared with Sand Ninja Village, Konoha Village is much better. Whether it is manpower or high-end combat power, Konoha Village still retains a large part, and those who lose are nothing more than members of the root drawn from various tribes. After all, Tuanzang has just taken office, and there are not many people who can really command. In the village of Mist, there was news of the rebellion, but with the return of the 5th generation of Mizuki's Terumi, the rebellion was quelled in a very short time. And in the process of quelling the rebellion in Wuin Village, there is a faint shadow of the intervention of the Burial Ninja Village. This made the outside world speculate whether some agreement was reached between the Funeral Ninja Village and the Water Shadow and formed an alliance. Of course, some people speculate that as a big beauty, Ken may have some ineffable stories with the flying section of the Funeral Ninja Village. Otherwise, with the strength of the Burial Ninja Village, why did he let go of the Wuin Village? In short, among all kinds of rumors, the Funeral Ninja Village was established, and it was still on an equal footing with the 5 major villages, and even faintly exceeded the first line. It has become a force that all major forces have avoided, because there are rumors that the Burial Ninja Village, just like its name, is the land of the dead, and the living cannot enter it. What's next? Fei Duan lay on Xiaonan's lap, while Sunset Red peeled chestnuts for Fei Duan on the side and fed them to his mouth. Didn't the master already make up his plan? Are you going to change your next move? Xiaonan asked suspiciously. She knew that Fei Duan had made a plan of action a long time ago, but now it seemed that it was about to change. As long as you don't move Konoha, whatever you want me to do, I can listen to you. Sunset Hong suddenly interjected. She is not like Conan, she has been homeless since she was a child, and she still has strong feelings for Konoha, who gave birth to her. As I said, I promised the ape to fly to the sun. As long as it doesn't come to provoke me, then I won't kill it. Fei Duan replied lightly. He was slightly dissatisfied with Sunset Hong's attachment to Konoha, but after all, the days are still long, and he can slowly adjust and teach, right? Sunset Hong's sudden interjection also disturbed Fei Duan's thoughts, and Fei Duan, who was already hesitant about the next action, couldn't make up his mind at this time, whether it was better to be busy with the end first. He now had two plans. One was to head towards the Earth Dragon Pill and Miamu Mountain obtained from the Great Snake Pill and Jiraiya, and for these two immortal lands that could practice immortal arts and use natural energy, Fei Duan had coveted the three immortal lands a long time ago. And another plan is to take advantage of the decline of the power of the Sand Ninja Village this time, take advantage of the situation to trigger a war, and then the Funeral Ninja Village of the Flying Section can take the opportunity to insert into it and disrupt the peace situation of the 5 major ninja villages, and war can be said to be the fastest means for the Flying Section to obtain killing points. Which one is better in a short period of time? Fei Duan touched his head with a headache. As a difficult choice, he really couldn't make up his mind in the face of two extremely tempting options. Master, otherwise it's better to take down the two immortal lands first. After all, there must be quite a few strong people in the two immortal lands. Xiao Nan suggested to Fei Duan that she knew that her master had been looking for the strong to kill, although she didn't know what the reason for Fei Duan to kill the strong man was, but now as Fei Duan's most intimate little maid. The will of the master is her will. Good. Just listen to Xiao Nan's. Hearing Xiao Nan's suggestion, Fei Duan immediately made up his mind. Although the flying segment is a difficult choice, once someone gives advice, especially the suggestion given by an intimate existence like Xiao Nan, the flying segment naturally accepts it gladly. Suddenly, a paper crane flew in from outside the tower where Fei Duan lived and fell into his hand. This is a simple ninjutsu that Conan's transmission to the Uchiha clan uses to transmit messages, and it can also be said that it is specially used to transmit messages to the flying segments above the tower. After all, this tower did not have the permission of the flying section, and no one dared to climb it. Fei Duan slowly opened the paper crane and flattened it, and a note appeared in Fei Duan's eyes. Oh? It was actually someone who knew the organization. Fei Duan looked at the description on the note, and the people of the Shao organization really focused on themselves, he thought silently. Although on the surface, the Shao organization is led by Nagato, in fact, the real behind-the-scenes leader is Uchiha Obito. And Nagato obviously shouldn't have any thoughts about himself. After all, Xiao Nan is still following him, so the person who pushed Xiao to come here this time is probably either Obito or Uchiha Itachi. If the person who pushed Xiao to arrive was Obito, then it means that there are two possibilities for its purpose. First, to recruit the flying segment. He cannot be sure whether the flying segment is a member of the Uchiha clan, because after all, Madara has not told him whether anyone followed him in the first place. Second, that is for half of the one-tailed crane in the body of the flying segment. After all, when the tail was extracted by the flying segment, there are many people in Konoha watching, and the Shao organization with Baiju must be able to get these news. If it's really the weasel that guides the Shao organization to come to the door, then it's interesting. Fei Duan whispered. Xiao Nan and Shi Rihong were obedient and did not say a word on the side, and when Fei Duan was thinking seriously, they would not disturb him. The only problem that Fei Duan is worried about now is the time bomb of Itachi, and the news of the establishment of the burial ninja village will definitely not be concealed from Itachi, not to mention that Fei Duan does not plan to establish any underground organization. He wants to rely on the burial ninja village to play games and wars with the 5 ninja villages. Then the question arises, once Itachi appears in front of Uchiha Fugaku and the others, then will the Uchiha clan still obey their orders, and will they choose to trust Uchiha Itachi? Episode 126. What Fei Duan is most worried about is Itachi, a guy with many hole cards like a dog, whether it is the eyes that stop the water, or Izanami's bug-type skills, which makes Fei Duan very headache. Moreover, Itachi is still one of the few people who knows the true identity of Fei Duan, and he and Sarutobi Hinata know very well that Fei Duan is not a member of the so-called Uchiha family at all. And Fei Duan is also afraid that Itachi will come to play such a hand with him and expose his identity. At that time, if Uchiha Fugaku and others choose to believe Itachi, then Fei Duan will be a little uncomfortable. In that case, the flying segment can only erase the consciousness of the Uchiha family and make it a machine that only knows how to fight. In that case, not only the flying segment has to be distracted to control them, but the most important thing is that their combat effectiveness will obviously decline to a certain extent. Moreover, Fei Duan didn't have so much spare time to control them too much. He didn't plan to lock himself in this burial village. He still had a lot of things to go to personally. For example, those guys with unique abilities need to be killed by Fei Duan personally, and some indifferent miscellaneous fish can only be used to supplement the existence of killing points, so let these subordinates of the burial ninja village kill them. Let's go, let me go down and see who is leading the arrival of these guys. Fei Duan took Xiao Nan and Shi Rihong's little hands, transferred the two of them to the blood sea space, and then took out the muscles wrapped in white cloth and carried them on their backs. Then the whole person jumped from the window in the tower, and with the howling wind, the flying section fell heavily to the ground. How many people came? Hida asked towards Uchiha Fugaku, who had been waiting on the side, while unconsciously observing the changes on his face. 2. Uchiha Fugaku's face did not change, and he answered the question of the flying segment. Fei Duan nodded silently in his heart. Uchiha Fugaku didn't seem to have any problems, then it meant that the two people who came were not Itachi and dried persimmon ghost fish. As long as it is not these two guys, then Fei Duan is basically sure that the person who came was sent by Uchiha with the soil, but the purpose of coming is a little difficult to speculate. Did they explain their intentions? Fei Duan Chongyu Jibwa Fugaku asked. No, they just said that they would only say what they meant after seeing you in person. Uchiha Fugaku replied respectfully. Oh? It seems that the Komer is not good. A smile appeared at the corner of Fei Duan's mouth, and a divine light flashed in his lilac pupils. Can only be said if you see yourself? This is a fool. The other party obviously saw that the ninjas of the burial ninja village were all immortal, and if they went deeper, they were likely to face the same outcome as the three major ninja villages, so they did not dare to enter. Although the funeral ninja village is known that no one should enter, but in fact, he did not block the funeral ninja village. If someone wants to enter the village, they only need to report it. But apparently, these two people did not intend to come in, but planned to lead the flying segment outside. In this way, it is obvious that the person who came is not good. Alas. Before I could even find the door, he took the initiative to send someone to my door, so if I don't accept it, won't I be a little sorry? Fei Duan made a plan in his heart. He hadn't even hit Obito's body yet, but the other party wanted to hit his own idea first. Fei Duan is not a master who can suffer losses. Since he is here, there is no need to leave. The members of the Shao organization are all capable people, used to form a dirt rebirth army, and they are the most perfect candidates. You don't have to follow. Fei Duan said to the three pillars who followed behind him that he would come down from the tower, and Uchiha Fugaku arranged for the three pillars to follow the flying section closely to protect the safety of the flying section. Although they knew that the flying section was powerful, they just couldn't let go of their hearts. Master Fei Duan, but... Uchiha Xiaoming opened his mouth to explain, but Fei Duan waved his hand and interrupted him. Until now, no one has been able to kill me. Go back, this is an order. Fei Duan's face turned cold. He wanted someone who was obedient, not someone who hesitated, even if the other party was for his own safety. Yes. The three brothers of Uchiha answered loudly. Seeing the change in Fei Duan's face, the three of them no longer hesitated, and immediately returned to the funeral ninja village, allowing Fei Duan to walk out alone. The village is now divided into the outer village, which is where the villagers of the former Oto ninja village lived, and the inner village is where the deceased who were reborn from the filthy soil of the flying section lived. After all, if you want to make a village run, it is impossible for them to live in the coffin all the time, and when they think of it, they will come out in the psychic. Soon, Fei Duan walked alone to the edge of the outer village, where Zhao's two members were. Deidara and Scorpion, the legendary artistic duo? Fei Duan looked at the two people wearing black robes and red clouds in front of him, and said the identities of the two in his heart. Flying segment? Deidara stepped forward and asked with a big grin. Fei Duan looked at the yellow-haired man with a mouth on his hands in front of him, and showed a playful smile. That's right, I'm Fei Duan. Excuse me, are you looking for me for something? We are here to invite you to join our organization. This is your identity ring. Saying that, Deidara threw a ring to Fei Duan, and the ring had a 3 written on it, representing the identity of the ring bearer. I heard that you have an immortal body, and you can just get together with that old guy in Kakuto. The gloomy voice of the red sand scorpion came out from the crimson stream. It seems that both of them think that Fei Duan will not refuse, with an expression that we will be our own brothers in the future. Flying segment. Can't help it. Are you sure you don't want to ask my opinion? Deidara, the scorpion of red sand. Fei Duan playfully called out the names of the two people, and then looked at them calmly. Big brother Scorpion, he actually knows me. It seems that my reputation has indeed spread with my art, Deidara exclaimed excitedly. Scorpion. Flying segment. Can you figure out the crux of the matter? The point is that others don't want to participate in the organization, okay? Episode 127. Fei Duan, you only have to choose to join us, otherwise, with the problem of you being half a crane guard, you will face the infinite pursuit and killing of our Shao organization. In the midst of the crimson stream, a hoarse and deep voice sounded. Listening to the maddening sound, Fei Duan did not feel a little scared, but looked at Crimson with interest. In Fei Duan's eyes, the red sand scorpion was really a genius, and the creation skills of the humanoid puppet had reached its peak, which gave Fei Duan some other ideas. If this idea succeeds, then the flying segment can be said to change the way of inheritance. It's just that it's not so easy to achieve now, because that thing hasn't appeared yet. What's wrong, haven't you thought about it yet? Big brother Scorpion has spoken, are you guys still unappreciative? Deidara shouted, although different from the scorpion's artistic concept, Deidara still respected this older being. That, red sand scorpion, or... You can join my funeral ninja village so that I don't kill you. Short silver hair shone in the sun, light purple eyes revealed a confident light, and Fei Duan's words were even more relaxed. As simple as killing the two of them was as simple as eating and drinking. Bastard. You guy, big brother Scorpion, let me slaughter this hateful guy. He actually dares not to put me in his eyes, only to attract you. Is this looking down on me? Deidara said angrily, as if he had been greatly insulted. Red Sand Scorpion. Flying segment. How exactly are this guy's neurons long? The brain circuitry is so strange. It seems that this guy Itachi really didn't spread my news to the Shao organization. These two don't seem to know my true strength at all, and Obito doesn't seem to have told Deidara. Fei Duan silently speculated in his heart. Itachi is forgiven for not revealing his strength. After all, he is attached to Konoha, and he caused him to defect to Konoha, and if he keeps biting himself now, he is afraid that he will take Konoha. After all, now that the entire Uchiha clan has been resurrected, with their hatred of Konoha, there is a high probability of conflict. Although the major ninja villages have now blocked the news about the funeral ninja village, but Itachi has long known the plans of the flying segment. How can he not guess what the situation of the funeral ninja village established by the flying section is? As for the soil, the flying section is a little incomprehensible. Hidan is clear about a problem, that is, Deidara, because of the special way of soliciting Weasel at that time, caused him to have a special hatred for people who have chakra eyes. Because it was the first time he felt that his art was actually compared, he was unwilling, and even developed a variety of ninjutsu specifically for the Sharingan, but in the end it was all useless work. Temptation? Fei Duan finally made a conclusion, and besides that, he couldn't think of any reasonable explanation. Obito must have understood from the beginning that an existence like Hidan has great strength and a certain amount of power, and 9 times out of 10, he will not choose to join the Shao organization. Sending Deidara and Scorpion is just a symbolic pull. Once rejected, with Deidara's character, will he let Fei Duan leave? In particular, once the war starts, the flying segment will inevitably expose the Sharingan, which is bound to arouse Deidara's hatred and make him crazy, and the desperate Deidara is very terrifying. In particular, there is the Red Sand Scorpion, a puppet master known as the Genius Stylist, which is used to test the strength of the flying section, which is already a very luxurious lineup. Do it, Deidara. The deep voice of the Red Sand Scorpion sounded, and a thick murderous aura emanated from the crimson stream. They were all powerful and proud people, and no one could refuse their invitation, just like he had been. Speaking with strength is often the best way to solve problems. Red Sand Scorpion, are you really not going to consider my proposal? I haven't even laid out the conditions I proposed, so don't rush to refuse, Fei Duan said a little playfully. He is very confident, and the conditions he proposed, the Scorpion must not be able to refuse. It's useless to talk more, Deidara. The Scorpion yelled. Understood. Deidara's hands were instantly put into the pockets of his waist, and the 2 large mouths on his hands each bit off a small piece of detonating clay. The eternal kaleidoscope of the flying segment opened instantly, observing the amount of chakra that Deidara poured into the clay. Sure enough, the amount of chakra at the C1 level, even if you know that your strength is not weak, you still plan to test it first. Fei Duan has a certain understanding of Deidara, a person who is grinning on the surface, but is extremely careful in battle. Psychic. Fei Duan clasped his hands together, and channeled a white coffin with a big 3 written on it. Oh. Boom. As the lid of the coffin fell, the true face inside was revealed. 3 generations of wind shadows. Deidara, I don't have time to play with you, so let this one play with you. Hidan did not channel the members of the Uchiha clan, but released 3 generations of wind shadows, because, as a person with the magnetic blood lineage, he can use the magnetic Dun Sand Iron Sky Wing, and can fly in the air like Deidara. Moreover, the rebirth of dirt is an immortal body, and Deidara can't seal it, so he can't solve the 3 generations of wind shadows. Fei Duan's target now is the Red Sand Scorpion, a talent that makes him optimistic. Once the idea of the flying segment is successful, after the arrival of that plot, the funeral ninja village of the flying segment may have another force other than the undead. The power of a puppet, and it is a puppet that does not need human manipulation. That would be a nightmarish presence for the enemy. Bastard. You bastard. Dare to look down on me. Sure enough, the people of the Uchiha clan are such bastards, Deidara roared madly. He was really fed up with the people of the Uchiha clan. They all looked down on their art. However, no matter how crazy Deidara, he could not stop the 3 generations of wind shadows from fighting him. No way, it was originally an immortal body, coupled with the terrifying defense power of the Sandarn art of the 3 generations of wind shadow, like Deidara, who can be regarded as a restrained existence. There is really no way to take him. Episode 128. Unlike Deidara's madness, Scorpion has always behaved calmly. As a person who has changed himself into a puppet, he has long lost many of his feelings as a human being. The only obsession is attachment to his dead parents and attachment to the puppet. The reason why the scorpion was killed by Chiyo and Sakura in the first place was precisely because he was aroused by the puppet used by Chiyo and aroused the attachment in his heart, and he deliberately asked for death. Otherwise, with the strength of the scorpion, it would not be defeated by Sakura and Chiyo. Conditions? Chatter. The scorpion's low and hoarse laughter came out of the crimson stream, as if hearing something funny. Crimson Su stared at Fei Duan's eyes with powerful pupil power, and as a puppet, Crimson Su's expression could actually show a look called greed. It is worthy of being a scorpion that has reached the top level in the puppet aspect, and the humanoid puppet made is really amazing. Fei Duan praised without hesitation, and did not feel any dissatisfaction because of the scorpion's greedy look. He naturally understood what the scorpion's look meant, and the scorpion immediately gave the answer. Fei Duan, my only interest is making puppets, but I haven't made a puppet with a chakra eye yet. Scorpion's voice is full of fanaticism, and his original favorite puppet is the puppet of 3 generations of Wind Shadow that he killed and created with his own hands. But now, with a more perfect material in front of him, how could he not be moved? Those people in the organization, he can't move, and he doesn't have the strength to move them, but this one in front of him can't be said. The scorpion still has absolute confidence in its own strength. However, there is one point: the scorpion's puppet technique is indeed amazing, but in fact, his attack ability has been greatly limited, and it is even inferior to Deidara. Because, depending on the attack method of the puppet, ninjutsu requires a ninjutsu scroll to release, and the damage of the puppet mechanism has no effect on people like Hidan. Even the venom smeared on the scorpion's organ had no effect on the flying segment. Even the scorpion's red secret technique 100 chance exercise that captured a country could not break through Susanu's defense. However, all this, the scorpion does not know. Be my perfect collectible, fly. The scorpion roared, and then the crimson mouth suddenly split a few petals, and the hole opened wide. So. Countless thousand books with purple venom shot densely towards the flying segment, and the range was so wide that it almost covered the range of tens of meters. It's useless. Fei Duan looked at the poisonous needle Qianben that quickly attacked, said lightly, and then the thunder condensed on his left hand, and 10,000 birds chirped in unison. Chidori Chiban. The thunder turned into fine needles, and with the wave of the flying segment, countless thunder fine needles shot out, colliding with the 1,000 books shot out of the crimson stream in the air. Bite. 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 The crisp sound continued to come out, and the unique judgment ability of the Sharingan allowed Faden to easily shoot down each poisonous needle. After a stormy attack, countless poisonous needles were scattered between the scorpion and the flying segment. It's worthy of riding wheel eyes, it's really a jealous ability. The scorpion's eyes became more and more hot, and he was already a little impatient to make the flying segment into a puppet. But he heard that Fei Duan had an immortal body, and he didn't know if he could make a living puppet that would amaze the world. As soon as he thought of this, the scorpion's mood was difficult to suppress, and his crazy love for puppets made his greed for the flying segment more and more difficult to control. Click. Click. Crimson Su's left arm suddenly raised, and half of the arm shot out directly, and then continuously rotated, shooting out bamboo pipe-like things of the same thickness and size. Die. The scorpion snorted lowly. One by one, the bamboo pipes were disconnected from the middle, and the countless poisonous needles contained in them shot towards the flying section from all directions. Unlike Senbon, which shoots from the mouth, this organ has a wider range and attacks from all directions, making it difficult for ordinary people to dodge. It was under the control of Chiyo's mother-in-law, who was experienced in battle, that Sakura was able to dodge it. However, this is extremely easy for the flying segment. In order for the scorpion to return to his heart, Fei Duan does not intend to directly solve him by crushing. He wants to make the scorpion feel desperate, because of the despair of his lack of ability. At that time, Fei Duan put forward his own ideas to him, then the scorpion would definitely not refuse himself. The figure of the flying segment was like a dancing butterfly, streaking through the air one after another strange figures, and the needle rain formed by the poisonous needle Qianben could not touch the flying segment at all. Each time, Qianben swiped dangerously past the side of the flying section, but he couldn't touch the body of the flying section at all. Die. Suddenly, Crimson Amber's tail struck towards Fei Duan like lightning, taking advantage of Fei Duan's continuous dodging of Qianben's gap, and launched the fatal blow he had been waiting for a long time. A smile appeared at the corner of Fei Duan's mouth, which was waiting for this moment. Chidori Sharp Gun. The Chidori shot out from the left hand of the flying section, and the red and white thunder instantly met the tail of the crimson stream, but the always sharp Chidori sharp spear failed to pierce the tail in front of him for the first time. Even, it was not able to transmit the terrifying electric current after the flight section improvement through its tail. Although it failed to pierce the tail of the crimson stream, it still stopped its attack, and the scorpion's raid also failed. Isn't it actually a tail made of pure iron? After 1,000-needle rain, Fei Duan stopped his figure and looked at the crimson stream in front of him, once again feeling incredible for the superb and careful skills of the scorpion. After years of combat experience, do you think I won't target the thunder ninja who has restrained himself from the puppet organ? You're underestimating me, Fei Duan, the scorpion said in a cold voice. How could he not guard against the thunder ninja? Each of his organ parts was not a simple metal, but an alloy that he had refined and developed, which was prepared to guard against a thunder ninja like Fei Duan. Even the venom applied on his organs was carefully prepared by him, and no one knew how his toxins were prepared and how many times they had been updated. Episode 129, it's worthy of being an experienced scorpion, who has thought of all aspects of the battle. For the scorpion's pinnacle puppet skills, as well as the scorpion's thoughtfulness, Fei Duan felt very impressed. The scorpion doesn't have any blood succession limits and the like, nor does it have any unique abilities like the others in it. He is the only one who has created countless superb puppets by his own talent, and even turned himself into a puppet body. And he relies on these puppets to make himself among the top masters, which is what Fei Duan is most optimistic about. With a subordinate with unlimited creativity, the scorpion alone is comparable in some ways to an army composed of countless strong people. Scorpion, do you want to continue to use the Crimson Stream? No matter how powerful your Crimson Ryu is, it is impossible to be physically stronger than mine with the Sharingan, Fei Duan said to the scorpion playfully. He was looking forward to seeing the 3 generations of wind shadow puppets made by the scorpion. As a puppet, but able to use the original ninjutsu of the living, I have to say that this is almost impossible to do, but in the hands of the scorpion, it is realized. It's worthy of repelling the existence of the 3 major ninja villages alone, and my Crimson Stream Amber really doesn't have the slightest chance to cause you any harm. The scorpion's voice was no longer low and hoarse, but as magnetic and energetic as a young youth. The mask on Crimson Flow's back slowly opened, and a black figure flashed away from inside, and finally stood beside Crimson Amber. Is it finally willing to come out of this turtle shell? Red Sand Scorpion, Fei Duan's eyes began to brighten. This was a duel to examine the opponent's talents and skills. From the beginning, Fei Duan was simply to observe how fine the puppet made by the scorpion was, and whether it could meet his expectations. And now it seems that, at least so far, the flying segment is still very satisfied. It's really a powerful physique. I will definitely be very satisfied if I want to make a puppet, and it will definitely become my most perfect collectible. The scorpion tore off the gray gauze covering his body and threw it aside, revealing the young face inside, and his body was shrouded in red clouds and black robes. Looking at Fei Duan's still indifferent eyes, the scorpion showed a puzzled look for the first time. The other party knows his name, how can he be surprised by his young and ageless appearance? Nope. No, the chakra I can only observe the flow of chakra, although my body has been transformed into a puppet, but chakra can still flow freely throughout the body, he should not see it. The scorpion's heart was full of doubts, why the other party was not surprised at all, his secret was not known to anyone except the organization. Why the look of amazement, scorpion? Isn't it just to transform myself into a puppet? Do you think I will be surprised by this? Fei Duan said lightly, the plot is something, I have long had a B number in my heart, how can I be surprised by the age of the scorpion? Humph. Scorpion Sundara snorted coldly, although he didn't understand why Fei Duan knew him so well, but the current situation did not allow him to think more. The 2 scrolls appeared in the scorpion's hand, and then slowly opened, revealing a corner of the top. One of the scrolls has the word seal written on it, and the other has the word 3 written on it. Bang! With a bang, the crimson stream turned into a wisp of white smoke and was sealed into the scroll in the scorpion's hand. The Crimson Stream Amber was made by him quietly, and there was no damage during the battle, so naturally he couldn't just put it here and wait for the flying section to destroy it. Bang! With another soft sound, a puppet in a gray robe appeared in front of the scorpion, and 10 chakra threads connected various parts of the 3 generations of wind shadow puppets from the scorpion's fingers. The 3 generations of wind images who were fighting with Deidara felt something, suddenly turned around, looked at the scorpion and the puppet beside him, and their eyes revealed anger and hatred. Scorpion! The filthy earth body of the 3 generations of wind shadows let out an angry roar, and after seeing the enemy with his own eyes again, the emotions made him unable to hold himself. Oh? If that's the case, let you play with the scorpion. Fei Duan showed an interested smile, between the real person and the puppet, who will be more powerful? In this regard, the flying section is quite interested. Sand and Iron Rain. Sand and Iron Rain. The scorpion and the 3 generations of wind shadows shouted one after another, and the bullet-like raindrops formed by countless sand and iron emitted a terrifying roar in the air and collided together. The puppet of the scorpion manipulating the 3 generations of wind shadow met the 3 generations of wind shadow himself, the strongest wind shadow in legend. After all, it is still not to be underestimated, and the scorpion also has to deal with it with all its strength. And Deidara seized this opportunity to attack the flying section. The white clay bird carried Deidara quickly towards the flying section, and several clay spiders appeared in Deidara's hands, which began to expand rapidly as Deidara's throw. The clay spider quickly flew towards the flying segment, and the flying segment was a bored left-hand wave. Chidori Senbon pinned each clay spider so that it could not detonate. With the flying section mastered by Lei Duan, Deidara, in addition to self-detonation, really has no way to take him, and even, once he is close to the flying segment and controlled by the flying segment with Lei Duan, then he really has no chance to self-detonate. Bastard! Damn thunder! Why would my great art be restrained by this damn thunderbolt? Deidara's face was calm, but standing on the bird, his heart was constantly cursing, and thunder was always a pain in his heart. His explosions are all based on the clay that detonated, that is, Tuduan, but as a thunder to restrain Tuduan, Deidara's really has no temper to speak of. Abominable. Deidara cursed darkly, then put his hands into his bag and devoured a large amount of detonating clay, and then a huge ball of clay was run to the ground by it. Bang! After a puff of white smoke, a huge white clay dragon appeared in front of Fei Duan's eyes. C2 Dragon. I'm not Sasuke, the length of my Chidori sharp spear is not what you can imagine, it's really naive to use this trick against me. Fei Duan silently said in his heart that his Chidori was much stronger than Sasuke at that time, and Sasuke's 5-meter distance limit was not a problem for him at all. Episode 130, however, how could Deidara understand the horror of the flying segment? As the C2 dragon flapped its thick wings, it began to slowly rise into the air. Unlike in the plot, Deidara still released many huge spider-shaped bombs, that is, mines that did not need Deidara to detonate. Unlike Fei Duan's conjecture, these spiders do not need Fei's assistance to be hidden underground as in the plot. As if they were one with the ground, they slowly merged into the earth and then hidden. But for the flying segment with the eyes of the chakra, the clearly visible chakra, even in the soil, is still shining like a star in the night sky, clearly visible. So it is. Fei Duan nodded, determining why Deidara asked Fei to help him plant the mine in the first place. Quite simply, chakra is limited. Using a dirt escape like this to bury a large number of mines in the soil, the consumption of chakra is not small, and it is naturally possible to save it for Deidara. After all, he is not an open-hang player like Naruto, and chakra can't use a dry existence. Die. Deidara's hands were sealed, and the tail of the huge white wyvern squirmed, and then a small wyvern spat out of its mouth. The little flying dragon quickly flew towards the flying section. Although its size was relatively bloated, it was extremely flexible, and even the Chidori sharp gun could not be aimed. However, Fei Duan has the ability that Lei Duan masters, as long as it is all Lei Duan's ninjutsu, he can use it. Including, Lan Dunli Feng Lock Lotus, Fei Duan's palms were facing forward, and a blue thunder ball between the two palms instantly formed, and then, countless lightning bolts in the thunder ball spread out. Unlike ordinary direct lightning, the lightning bolt of Airshur Shushu Su is combined with the flexibility of water and can constantly change in the air to actively attack enemies. The nimble wyvern was directly entangled in countless lightning bolts and then cut into pieces. Deidara didn't even have a chance to detonate, and the little flying dragon was directly destroyed by the flying segment. Abominable. Damn it. Damn it. Deidara jumped out of 3 hateful in a row, and originally wanted to use the little flying dragon to force the flying section to move and let it fall into the mine array. But now it seems that this cannot be done at all. Even, Lan Duan of the flying section had already attacked towards the C2 dragon, and the terrifying speed was simply not something that a clumsy dragon could dodge. Forced into desperation, Deidara could only instantly create a clay bird and throw it into the air, and after becoming larger, he carried himself to abandon the C2 dragon. And the next moment, the dragon was cut into a pile of ordinary clay that had lost its explosive ability by terrifying lightning. Deidara, this guy was really restrained to death by Lei Duan. Fei Duan whispered a little speechlessly, once this guy meets a ninja who is proficient in thunder, then he will really fight very angrily, just like now. I'm afraid that Deidara, who should be planning to use C4 Corollas now, should not think of any good way to deal with himself except this trick. Fei Duan silently guessed that Deidara's understanding of the Sharingan was limited to illusion, but he had no idea about the fact that the Sharingan could observe the flow and color of chakra. This is one of the reasons why Deidara's death in battle with Sasuke is so tragic. And now, it's just a reproduction of this scene. Sure enough, Deidara, forced to helplessly, could only seal his hands, and then in the air, spit out a stream of white clay from his mouth, gradually condensed and formed in the air, turning into an oversized Deidara. Has C4 Galuro already appeared? The scorpion manipulates the puppet of the 3 generations of Wind Shadow, while fighting with the 3 generations of Wind Shadow himself, while observing Deidara's fight with Faden. He didn't expect that Fei Duan would force Deidara's big move so quickly. You know, this move is extremely expensive to chakra. With Deidara's ability, after releasing this move, it is estimated that there is no chakra that can continue to fight. Damn it. The scorpion suddenly thought of a question. The scope of Deidara's technique is extremely wide, and the place where he fought with the 3 generations of wind shadows is not very far from Deidara and Hidan. This also means he will also be affected. Did this madman start going crazy as soon as he saw the Sharingan? The scorpion scolded with an ugly face. Although he was a puppet, once those nanobombs covered his core, he would also be killed. And now, 3 generations of wind shadows are pestering him again, making him inseparable. The scorpion can now be said to be as much as he wants to hold back, and the enemy has not yet taken what he does, and as a result, his teammates are about to blow themselves up. Sure enough, with Deidara's imprint, the giant Deidara, the giant, began to swell, and his body continued to become bloated until first, it disappeared into the air like a squib. However, in Fei Duan's eyes, it was clearly visible that a blue mist spread around with the breeze brought by the explosion. Are you crazy enough that you don't even care about your teammates? It seems that he really suffered too much blow from the weasel. Fei Duan secretly thought that Deidara's hatred for the Uchiha clan was not unreasonable. What he regarded as pinnacle art, but was defeated by the weasel's illusion, and for the first time made him doubt himself, doubting his art. Deidara's art is an existence that he sees more than life, as can be seen from his final move, self-detonation. It is such an important art, but it was denied by Uchiha Itachi, and his heart is naturally full of unwillingness and hatred. However, Fei Duan didn't want Deidara's move to affect the scorpion, which was of great use to himself. In Fei Duan's right eye, the pupil power of the kaleidoscope instantly erupted, and a wisp of blood flowed from the corner of his eye. Amaterasu. In the blue sky in the eyes of ordinary people, a terrifying black flame burned, and the flame quickly spread, burning a large space, and then quickly disappeared into the air. And the blue chakra mist in Fei Duan's eyes also disappeared with the disappearance of the sky. Episode 131, this is Itachi's Amaterasu. Damn it, Deidara watched in horror as his C4 Galuro turned to ashes in a sea of fire, and not even a nanobug bomb could be left. The same members of the Shao organization still have a certain understanding of each other's special abilities, not to mention the ability to be as famous as Amaterasu. At this time, Deidara, who was already a little exhausted and stood on top of the clay bird, now he no longer had the arrogance he had when he first appeared. A shadow called frustration shrouded Deidara, and both the presence of thunder and Sharingan made Deidara's restraint at every turn. This kind of grudging fight was something he had never experienced before. Anger and hatred began to stir in his heart. When was his art so despised? Unforgivable. Deidara roared hoarsely. Oh? Are you going to use that trick? It seems that he has also found that conventional means are useless for him. Fei Duan had a smile on the corner of his mouth, looking at Deidara, who was already crazy in the sky. That super powerful self-detonating ninjutsu with a range of 10 kilometers really makes the flying section look forward to it. A huge firework is about to bloom. Good risk. The scorpion wiped the cold sweat that did not exist on his forehead, and although he became a puppet, he still sometimes inadvertently made habitual movements. This is the nature of his still human consciousness. Damn it, this dirt body's ability to resurrect wireless chakra infinitely is really disgusting. As a puppet master, the puppet who manipulates the 3 generations of wind shadows has killed the real 3 generations of wind shadows more than once, but the other party can keep resurrecting. And without the ability to seal, he really has nothing to do with the other party, and the hatred of the 3 generations of wind shadows for the scorpion is to make him work harder to kill the scorpion, so that he can't get out in a short time. At this moment, Scorpion's beautiful face suddenly became gloomy, and the wrinkles between his eyebrows seemed to be impossible to untie. This idiot. There was a hint of trepidation in the scorpion's voice. Because he saw Deidara's terrifying movements in the air. I saw Deidara's clothes ripped off, and there was a large mouth sewn up on his left chest. Deidara was now using the mouth in his hand to remove the stitches on his chest, and then a terrifying mouth split from his chest. A big tongue sticks out of the mouth, and the whole person is strange. If this were a woman, it would be a big deal. Looking at the changes in Deidara's air in the air, Fei Duan couldn't help but complain. Thinking of that picture, the silver hair on one end stood up, and goosebumps came all over his body. Brother Scorpion, I'm sorry. Deidara yelled, then shoved a large handful of explosive clay into his large mouth on his chest. As the big mouth continued to squirm, the detonating clay was constantly swallowed by it. And Deidara's body also began to appear pitch-black veins. His whole person began to become transparent continuously, and on his chest there was a black spherical smile constantly condensed. Scorpion's mood at the moment really doesn't know how to describe it, as if he has held 10,000 MMP sentences in his heart but can't say the feeling. Obviously he hasn't done anything yet, and the enemy hasn't done anything to them, so your teammate will give you a word of sorry, and then he will blow himself up. And it's the kind of self-explosion that is so wide that you can't dodge. Scorpion, what can I do? I'm desperate, too. I'm looking for someone to mess with. Usually the big brother scorpion's call is a good sound. Self-explosion is special just as sorry is over. Can't you not be so desperate? Do you understand what it means to keep the Green Mountain without fear of no firewood? The scorpion really has a word of suffering now. If there are no 3 generations of wind shadows entangled with him, then he can still think of a way to use the puppet to make a hole deep enough to hide or something. But now she doesn't have that time. For a moment, the scorpion had no clue at all, and even the puppet manipulated by it began to lose its proportion, and began to be suppressed and beaten by the 3 generations of wind shadows. Fei Duan naturally noticed the embarrassment of the scorpion, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He naturally wouldn't let the scorpion die like this, but it was extremely rare to see the scorpion's expression. Although the scorpion is indeed powerful in some aspects, and can even attack a country alone, it seems to be more than enough in the face of such a powerful attack. This is also the limitation of the puppet. After all, he even has to rely on the physical mechanism and the ninjutsu scroll to release the ninjutsu. Deidara didn't intend to give Fei Duan too much opportunity to think, and soon turned completely into a pitch-black spherical smile. Drink. As a passionate voice sounded, a trace of light began to gradually appear on the smiling face, and the entire smiling face began to crack. At this moment, the kaleidoscope of Fei Duan's left eye rotated violently, and the pupil power poured out. Kamui. At the smiling face that Deidara's face turned into, a powerful spatial vortex instantly appeared, pulling it into another space. As the spatial vortex disappeared, the pressure on the scorpion suddenly disappeared, and the threat of death dissipated. Fei Duan, on the other hand, stood in place and stared ahead. His gaze saw through the boundaries of space, and carefully looked at the space of the Sea of Blood. The terrifying roar and blazing white light covered the space in a radius of tens of miles. Fortunately, the space of the Sea of Blood is a space after all, the big is boundless, and although the terrifying explosion set off an uproar in the space, it still could not affect the tower where Xiaonan and Shi Rihong were located. What a spectacle! Fei Duan couldn't help but sigh, looking at this huge explosion light curtain. His heart was secretly excited. Soon, there will be an extra terrifying self-detonator under him. As early as when Fei Duan fought with Deidara, he was using Lan Duan, taking advantage of Deidara's inattention, cut his skin and obtained his blood. Otherwise, after Deidara's self-explosion, it is estimated that even the slag will not be found. Episode 132, Host, Fly Segment Fly. Strength, Super Shadow Level, does not count special abilities. Blood Limit, Eternal Kaleidoscope Sharingan, 100,000 kill points required for upgrade. Physique, Full. Ninjutsu, Spell Death Division by Blood, 2nd Stage, 500,000 killing points required for upgrade. Forbidden Technique, Dirt Rebirth, Complete, 100,000 killing points required for upgrade. 8 Gates Dun Jia, Instantaneous Technique, Fire Escape Mastery, Thunder Dun Mastery, Izanagi. Special, Immortal Body, Perception. Weapons, Bloody March Scythe, Black Spear, Decapitation Knife, Squirrel. Kill point, 60-30. This is the host panel after the current flying segment has taken out Tuanzang and Deidara. What made Fei Duan a little puzzled was that Deidara's self-explosion actually did not have a killing point born, and he did not get any ability. That's kind of strange. Is it because Deidara committed suicide subjectively, not obeying my orders like the previous believers? Fei Duan secretly guessed, if this is the case, then Fei Duan will have to pay attention. A guy who can't beat himself up or commit suicide like this is a little disgusting. Of course, few people can do it. Suicide can be as vigorous as Deidara. Thinking that his subordinates would have an extra terrifying self-detonating soldier, Fei Duan couldn't suppress the joy in his heart. If Deidara's self-explosion is not used, I am afraid that he is not very strong in the Shao organization. But once the self-detonation trick is used, then he is a nuclear bomb-level deterrent weapon. With Deidara, if you see that village in the future, then let Deidara go up and walk around, and the other party must not obediently surrender and admit defeat. Of course, Yunin village will forget it. Maybe after going, there will be no return. After all, the other party is almost all ninjas who are good at thunder. Now that Deidara has solved it, the relieved scorpion is still grappling with the 3 generations of wind shadows. Chakra is almost bottoming out, scorpion. Although the puppet body does not feel tired and other negative feelings. However, still possessing a part of the flesh as the source of chakra supply and the source of life for the scorpion, Fei Duan can observe the round stone pillar-like thing with the word scorpion written on it. The chakra above has decayed sharply, and has been manipulating the 3 generations of wind shadow puppets to use the sand iron technique, and the consumption of chakra is very intense. After all, general puppet battles are all puppets used, as well as ninjutsu sealed in advance. But after all, it is the perfection of scorpion production, and you can use the ninjutsu of 3 generations of Kazekage, but the puppet is a puppet after all, and the source of supply for chakra still comes from the scorpion's root. And the 3 generations of wind of the filthy earth body are different. Infinite chakra, are you afraid or not? Don't be afraid of death, you're not afraid. Therefore, the scorpion is also very suffocating, who to fight within the past is not a tactical and efficient way, but this is completely a life-to-life fighting method. What can you do with him? The scorpion also expressed helplessness. Scorpion, do you want to consider my conditions? When you joined the Shao organization, you were just defeated by their strength, and now I can do it, or even easier, right? Fei Duan controlled the 3 generations of wind shadows and stopped, and then said to the scorpion. What he needs is a scorpion that is completely in his heart, otherwise even if he kills him and makes it into a dirt rebirth. Even after killing the scorpion, he got his puppet skill, but the flying segment is the flying segment. After all, he is not the scorpion himself, even if he gets the scorpion's puppet skill. However, Fei Duan does not have the creative ability of the scorpion and the talent of the puppet. After all, this is not a blood succession limit, but an avenue created by the scorpion completely with its own talent. Why? I need an explanation, because you can completely control me like 3 generations of wind shadows who made me into a dirt reincarnation. Scorpion asked, puzzled, not understanding why Fei Duan wanted to subdue himself so much. When did he become so valuable? People reborn from dirt, if they do not return to their hearts, then they can only become combat machines, and they can't be of much use, but you are different, Scorpion. Fei Duan continued with some fanaticism. I can allow you to open up a new era, an era when puppets do not need to be controlled by chakra lines. Scorpion. The scorpion is completely stunned, no need for a puppet controlled by chakra lines. In addition to the fact that the scorpion does not need the chakra thread to control his body, he still needs to rely on the chakra thread when controlling other puppets. Because, without the chakra line, the puppet has no source of power, so how does it act? How does it accept the orders of the manipulator? Even, each puppet needs a puppet master who can be applied in order to be able to exert its combat power. Otherwise, put on a person who will not use it, they will not be able to play the role of a puppet, it is completely a pile of scrap iron. And now, Fei Duan actually told him that he could make a puppet that could not rely on chakra line control, which seemed to be a fantasy, but Fei Duan put it forward as a condition. Really? Are you sure? As if the mechanism was stuck, the scorpion's words seemed a little dry, as if it was very difficult to ask this question. With my strength, do I need to lie to you? Scorpion, with your ability, you should not bury and Shao, where you can't get any improvement at all. It's better to follow me. You can open a new episode of Puppeteer. Fei Duan bewitched the scorpion, but he really longed for the scorpion to join. Only after a person like the scorpion joined, the kind of thing that appeared in the future could play its most powerful role. You. If you can resist the pursuit and killing of the Shao organization, then it doesn't matter if I join your organization. Finally, the scorpion calmed down. Came up with their only request. If he couldn't even face the chase and kill of the Shao organization, then it would be pointless for him to join in. Although he has some understanding of the strength of the flying stage, the strength of the Shao organization has left a deep-rooted influence on the scorpion. In fact, except for the flying segment, if the Shao organization is pouring out, there are really few people who can resist them. It's like a joke. The Shao organization knows that a group of people are invincible existences, and they have to go up and give away people's heads one by one. You can rest assured that my power is not weaker than the Shao organization at all, and there is even a guy you are familiar with, who is also our partner. Episode 133, Familiar Guy? Now that a tacit agreement has been reached, the scorpion has put away the puppets of the 3 generations of wind shadows and re-entered the crimson stream. But the scorpion was a little interested in the familiar guy that Fei Duan said. Orochimaru, your old acquaintance. Fei Duan smiled and replied. These 2 guys are also people who often contact each other in the Shao organization, and even Medicine Master Pocket has acted as a double agent between the 2. It's just that the Medicine Master is more inclined to the side of the big snake pill. Great. Snake. Pill. The scorpion said the name of the big snake pill almost word for word. Obviously, he did not have a good impression of this guy, and could even be said to be quite disgusted. Fei Duan looked at the scorpion's somewhat overreaction, and also smiled secretly in his heart. These 2 guys, one obsessed with science and the other obsessed with puppets, are both talented scientific players. But it seems that these 2 people are born with something wrong. Let's go back to the village first, and I'll slowly explain my great idea to you. As soon as he mentioned his thoughts, Fei Duan couldn't help but secretly get excited in his heart. The flying section dissolved the psychic technique, and the 3 generations of wind shadows were once again packed into a white coffin, and finally disappeared into the earth. Fei Duan and the scorpion will soon arrive in the funeral ninja village, and the funeral ninja village is silent at this time, and the members of the Uchiha clan have returned to their homes. Only Uchiha Fugaku was still standing in place in the square, waiting for the return of the flying section. Uchiha Fugaku, is there something going on? Fei Duan looked at Uchiha Fugaku, who was standing in place a little confused. He seemed to have some doubts but couldn't say anything. Master Fei Duan, I. Uchiha Fugaku looked at the scorpion, but in the end, he was still unable to speak. He has been in this state since the battle in the 3 shinobi villages. It's just that Fei Duan has been staying on the tower these days, staying with Xiaonan and Shi Rihong to cultivate feelings, and has not appeared, so he has never had a chance to speak. Fei Duan's brows furrowed, looking at Uchiha Fugaku, who wanted to say nothing, and there were some conjectures in his heart. Maybe Uchiha Fugaku already knows something true. Therefore, he will present such a state, and the reason why he can't ask is simply because the scorpion is still here. Uchiha Fugaku is probably already holding back, and now he should be a little impatient to get an answer. Scorpion, find a place to live for the time being. The idea I put forward will have to wait until the time comes, and I will tell you later. Fei Duan explained to the scorpion and signaled that he should go. After all, about the Uchiha family, Fei Duan still didn't want too many people to know. Even if this person has become his partner. But Faden has never believed that there will be real trust between so-called partners, and the only thing involved between them is interests. Whoever gives a high enough benefit, then who is a more perfect partner, it's as simple as that. And it was precisely for the pursuit of higher puppet skills that Scorpion chose to betray Xiao and become Faden's partner. This is still very clear in Fei Duan's heart. Just like the Great Snake Pill, he chose to cooperate with Fei Duan in order to recover his hands, otherwise, with the nature of the Great Snake Pill, he would not be subordinate. The purpose of Orochimaru's joining Xiao from the beginning was not simple, it was the idea of writing the Eye of Reincarnation and the Eye of the Weasel. This is also enough to show that the Big Snake Pill will not succumb to people, nor is it willing to succumb to people. Okay, but you'd better tell me your idea quickly, I can't wait. The voice of the scorpion from the Crimson Stream was gloomy and hoarse, but it revealed a fanaticism. It was a fanaticism for the nobler puppet technique, a fanaticism for one's own highest pursuits. Fei Duan nodded, he also had high expectations for this, and naturally hoped to realize it as soon as possible. The scorpion slowly left, leaving Uchiha Fugaku and Hidan on the square. Say, I think you must have just thought of something, these days out of such confusion. Fei Duan said bluntly, but did not point out what the other party knew. The flying segment. My lord, I want to know if the demise of our Uchiha clan in the first place was. Thank you, Uchiha Fugaku voiced the question in his heart with difficulty. Once such a question is asked, their fate may change drastically. Yes or no, it's quite important. Uchiha Fugaku does not want to be an unjust ghost, and even has to work under the enemy. It was the curse of that day that reminded you of the night of the extermination. Fei Duan said flatly, without the slightest wave in his heart. Even if Uchiha Fugaku learned this, he didn't have anything to worry about, because he already had words, cruel words. Yes. Uchiha Fugaku's mood also calmed down, and he nodded in response. That day, the 3 major ninja villages besieged the burial ninja village and were counter-killed by Fei Duan, and then Fei Duan used Tuanzong Kai Dao as an experimental product in order to test his Death Master's ability to use the second stage of blood. And Uchiha Fugaku on the side naturally witnessed this scene with his own eyes, and then thought of the scene when Uchiha took blood from the clan and later the whole clan was inexplicably injured and then died. Uchiha Fugaku naturally thought of Fei Duan, and almost identified that it was the Uchiha clan that Fei Duan and Itachi joined forces to get rid of. And now, they are actually doing things for the people who have destroyed their entire clan, which has to be said to be ironic. Uchiha Fugaku couldn't accept this situation, so he still mentioned it to Fei Duan, hoping to get a perfect explanation. That's right, I found Itachi in the first place, and it was still very difficult for him to destroy Uchiha alone, but it was much easier to simply take blood, so we hit it off and finally succeeded in achieving the goal. Hidan directly told Uchiha Fugaku about the situation at that time. Sure enough. And Uchiha Fugaku couldn't help but sigh after getting the answer that he had confirmed. Episode 134, but do you know why I did that? Fei Duan changed his voice and asked rhetorically. Uchiha Fugaku's originally dim eyes lit up, he really hoped that Hidan could deny that he was the initiator of the scourge of extermination. But Fei Duan admitted it without hesitation, and the glimmer of hope in his heart was shattered. But now Fei Duan gave another why question, which made a wave rise in his heart again. No one wants to die or be used as a tool, lose themselves, or even lose their soul. As the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, he naturally has greater ambitions and ambitions. What's more, they had all already experienced death once, and it was hard to return to this world, so why was he willing to leave like this? Therefore, he needs an explanation in his heart, even if it is not so reasonable or even false. Why? Since you told us that you are another branch of Uchiha, why did you get rid of us and then resurrect us? Since Fei Duan was willing to explain, then Uchiha Fugaku naturally wanted to ask clearly. Fei Duan looked at Uchiha Fugaku with cold eyes, and said two words, strength, strength? Uchiha Fugaku was a little puzzled, as the most powerful race in Konoha, even the Uchiha clan, which is very famous in the entire world. Isn't the strength enough? Because the strength is not enough, it is necessary to. Kaleidoscope Sharingan. Suddenly, Uchiha Fugaku thought of the idea of the first night of the extermination of the flying segment, and instantly understood the meaning of the flying segment. That's right, kaleidoscope chakra. This kind of evil eye can only be awakened when a loved one or loved one dies in front of one, Fei Duan explained coldly. It is precisely in order for you to have more kaleidoscopic chakra eyes that I will use the weasel and dominate your extermination calamity. His eyes calmly looked at Uchiha Fugaku, observing the changes in his face. Fei Duan's heart nodded secretly. After getting this result, Uchiha Fugaku's state of mind became calmer. So that's it. Uchiha Fugaku sighed again, but after getting the answer, he was much better than before. Although he is dissatisfied with the cruel methods of the flying segment, after all, the flying segment is to revive the Uchiha family. The reason for this is because your strength is far from enough to revitalize Uchiha, and even Konoha, you can't conquer it, right? This flying segment is to tell the truth, Konoha's hidden strength is very strong. Just those major races are already the mainstay of Konoha, and together they are not only not weaker than the original Uchiha clan, but even much stronger. The Uchiha clan is more arrogant by nature, and naturally it is incompatible with other races, which leads to the Uchiha clan not even having an ally. So much so that the exterminated clan was extinguished, and there was no other sound in the entire village. Coupled with the fact that Uchiha Itachi and Shisui are heart-to-heart Konoha, how could they possibly play Konoha? Uchiha Fugaku kept silent, but his heart was very clear. There really wasn't any problem with what Fei Duan said. Although they planned to rebel against Konoha in the first place, did they really have full confidence in their hearts? Of course not. Even Uchiha Shisui and his own son did not support it, and even stood on the opposite side. Isn't it really clear to Uchiha Fugaku? He is the head of a clan, he controls the movements of the whole clan, how can he not understand their thoughts? Fei Duan has always believed that it is a normal thing to have ambition, and the higher you stand, the farther you can see, which is human nature. Moreover, as long as someone exists, then desire is something that can never be avoided. And having desire means fighting, but Uchiha Itachi was able to destroy his entire clan for the sake of his so-called beliefs. This makes Fei Duan completely unable to figure it out, what will be more important than his own relatives. Even his parents loved him so much and supported him, and even chose to support him with their own lives. Now you understand why I want you to come back from the dead. Fei Duan asked lightly. He believed that Uchiha Fugaku would definitely choose to believe his own explanation, and this was the best explanation he could give. Strength. In order to be able to make the Uchiha clan stand back to the peak of the power. Such an explanation can convince the Uchiha family. Another point is that you are all reborn bodies of dirt, and even if your kaleidoscope chakra eyes are used casually, they will not cause any burden on your body, nor will you be blind. Fei Duan reminded again, but this point, he thought that the people of the Uchiha clan should have sensed it. It's true, when I used the kaleidoscope chakra eye before, I didn't feel any discomfort. In this regard, this is the only point that makes Uchiha Fugaku happy. But the thought that this was the price of death made him unhappy. Although they were resurrected by the rebirth of dirt and even had immortal bodies, they were not real living people after all, and in some senses, they were just corpses that could move freely. Don't care so much about your dead body, because when my strength reaches that realm, it is not impossible for you to be completely resurrected and become a real person again. Fei Duan knows the truth of beating a stick to give a sweet date, and as long as the people of the Uchiha clan sincerely do things for him, after he reaches that realm in the future, it is not impossible to truly resurrect them. Moreover, once you have the Eye of Reincarnation, the flying segment naturally has the ability to resurrect people at that time, and the Outer Path Reincarnation innate technique, this real sense of resurrection ninjutsu, although the amount of chakra required is extremely large, but the flying segment can still be supported. What? We. Is it really possible, complete resurrection? Uchiha Fugaku asked in disbelief. He couldn't believe his ears. Can such a thing as resurrection really happen? Episode 135. You are really sad, the glory of the ancestors has long disappeared, and even such a problem cannot be distinguished. Hidan mocked mercilessly, feeling sad for Uchiha Fugaku's doubts. The stone carvings of the Uchiha clan were changed by the black abstinence very early, which led to the change of Uchiha spots. And Konoha's exclusion of the Uchiha clan, as well as their own pride, made them end bleakly. The stronger the stone carving pupil power of the Uchiha family, the more it can be interpreted. And now they don't even know the existence of the Eye of Reincarnation, which shows how long they haven't had the existence of an eternal kaleidoscope. Hidan remembers that in Itachi's memory episode, Izanami's scene, almost all the high level of the Uchiha clan who appeared had kaleidoscopic chakra eyes. It's just that because of the struggle for power, they have weakened, and even many secret techniques have been lost. Among them is the forbidden technique of Izanagi. As for where Izanami of Uchiha Itachi learned, Hidan really didn't understand, he only felt that Itachi's body was full of mystery. In the plot, the feeling that Uchiha always feels like everything is under his control is really very strange. Do you know the Eye of Reincarnation? Hidan no longer dwelled on those things that were still out of reach, and asked Uchiha Fugaku. The Eye of Reincarnation, one of the 3 major pupil techniques? We have heard of this, but we have never seen it since ancient times, but according to rumors, the 6 Tao immortals have such eyes. Uchiha Fugaku replied honestly. As if remembering something, he added, and it is said that once this eye is present, it represents the arrival of calamity and war. Shit. Fei Duan cursed, I don't know where the rumor came from, it's just a mistake. The Eye of Reincarnation is a high-order form evolved by the Eye of Reincarnation, and it is only because after the birth of the Eye of Reincarnation, its pupil power is completely different from that of the Eye of Reincarnation, which has led to the Eye of Reincarnation being distinguished, and even cannot be used at the same time by 2 pupil techniques, and must switch to another kind of eye to be able to exert the corresponding ability. Fei Duan said what he learned from the plot and some of his own speculations. According to him, apart from Susanoo, the other kaleidoscopic abilities of writing chakra eyes seem to be unusable in the state of reincarnation eyes. Just like after Madara was resurrected, when using the 2 pupil techniques, he was constantly switching between the 2 forms. Uchiha Fugaku smiled sarcastically, and did not say anything because of Fei Duan's rudeness. Because he didn't know much about the Eye of Reincarnation, and almost all of it was heard from legends, it was normal to be incorrect. The Eye of Reincarnation, with a forbidden technique, is called the Outer Path Reincarnation Innate Technique. This forbidden technique that surpasses the S level, is a forbidden technique that belongs to the Eye of Reincarnation, and after it is launched, it can completely revive people and return to their peak state. For the Eye of Reincarnation, the eyes of the flying segment are full of yearning, but the killing point of 100,000 points is still out of reach for the current flying segment. Therefore, the current flying section is already a little impatient for the 3 immortal lands. And Uchiha Fugaku on the side was in a state of confusion after hearing Fei Duan's explanation. Not only was he confused, but something called hope took root in his heart. When a person has a goal, then he has a pursuit, and it will also generate motivation. And now, what makes Uchiha Fugaku motivate is back. True resurrection. Let the Uchiha family really live. That's what he'll strive for. Fei Duan did not tell Uchiha Fugaku the price required for the Outer Path Reincarnation Innate Technique. That price is the life force of the spellcaster and the huge chakra. However, these 2 points do not seem to have any pressure on the flying section. It can be said that no one can be more powerful than his life force, and his immortal body is not an existence like the rebirth of dirt. It is a physical immortal in the true sense, and its activity is incomparably powerful. Therefore, the limitation of the flying section lies in chakra and the Eye of Reincarnation, and for him who does not have the Eye of Reincarnation, everything is just empty talk and delusion. After you go back, you can tell them everything I said today. I believe it will make them more motivated. As long as I successfully open the Eye of Reincarnation one day, then you are not far from full resurrection. Hida said to Uchiha Fugaku, and then signaled that he could leave. Yes. Uchiha Fugaku was obviously full of spirit now, and his voice was much louder when answering. It's nice to have a goal. It's almost time to go to the Scorpion to discuss whether my plan is feasible, and then I should go to the Dragon Earth Cave. The immortal arts of the 3 immortal lands must be mastered. Fei Duan secretly calculated the next plan in his heart, but the first thing was to discuss with the Scorpion before going out. After all, his idea had to be understood by a puppet master like Scorpion before he could judge whether it was feasible. Moreover, the so-called creation of puppets that do not need human manipulation in the flying segment, one of the most critical items, has not yet been heard. For that kind of thing, the flying segment is also inevitable, whether it is used to make puppets or for other purposes. It is very important, and the owner plays a strategic role. The name of that substance is called Greer's Stone. Because of the existence of wind and snow, Faden has completely confirmed that the plot of Hokage's side plot will also appear in this world. And it's interspersed by a timeline. This also means that soon Yukiheim Ninja FA and Phantom Land Bottom Relic will appear one after another. Because both plots appeared when Naruto was still young, except that the former Sasuke had not left, and the latter Sasuke had left. The reason why the Grail Stone is so important is because it contains an extremely large chakra itself, and it can be restored on its own. It can even transform the human body, and the human race gains more powerful power,